Ohio State's game with Michigan always means everything, but this year's game has a lot more on the line.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to a Tuesday edition of Locked On Buckeyes here on Tuesday, January 16th in the year 2024. I am your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And here with us once again, he was with us last week. He's here with us again. It's Mo Murphy of the Off the Ball Network, the host of the Up in Flames podcast. And today we're discussing the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry and what the game means for Ohio State this year, and basically what Ohio State has to do in the game against Michigan to win for the first time since 2019. Mo, that statement sucks. Losing to them 1 year, it's not good. Not winning since 2019, that makes it hurt even more. But if Ohio State wants to win the game this year, they have to bring a level of aggression they have not played with ever in their lives.
Yeah, I agree. I think you need to see a Georgia performance against Michigan. I think, man, look, Michigan has played in the national championship now, won the Big Ten 3 times in a row, been to the playoffs 3 times in a row. They've turned into that team backs against the wall. That's how you got to play against them to beat them. Like, especially in the Big Ten, especially what it's going to look like. You had Oregon, you had USC, and maybe this Michigan game. I think the unfortunate thing for Ryan Day is he's lost 3 in a row because realistically, we walk into that game 11-0. Losing to Michigan really doesn't mean much outside of the opportunity to probably win the Big Ten and get a first-round bye in the playoffs. But other than that, like, you walk into that game 11-0 and you lose, you're still a playoff team, but you've lost 3 in a row. So you kind of picked the wrong time to lose 3 in a row because, hey, you lose this game, you might not be a Buckeye coach the next morning. You might be a part of Black Monday with the college football coaches, and you might be fired if you lose to Michigan 4 in a row. 3 is almost unforgivable. 4? All right, we let you dangle on the leash. Now we got to cut it, buddy. And you got to go be a stray for somebody else.
You know, Mo, talking about that game and the outcome of the game and how Ohio State wins this year, you highlight and talk about the Buckeyes could be 11-0 because you highlighted last week the schedule is not that strong. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot more riding on this game. It's not just the Big Ten title that is on the line, but also playoff positioning and seeding, because I just pulled up the schedule, Mo, and you are correct. It is not that hot at all.
Bro, we don't play the bye until we play Oregon.
Dude, it's Oregon October 12th. You go on the road to Penn State November 2nd, and then it's Michigan Thanksgiving weekend. Outside of that, what do you have? Marshall. You got Michigan State on the road. You got Iowa at home. You got Nebraska at home. You got Purdue at home. Go on the road to Northwestern. The schedule is not that difficult.
Bro, we got 9 home games next year. We got 8 or 9 home games next year.
It's crazy. And so I'm annoyed by what's happened at Ohio State. And it's not so much the losing that hurts, because losing always hurts. It's how they've played. And at times, Mo, the aggressiveness that you would think you would see in this game, or the desire to win the game and the body language that shows we believe we can win, it has not been there. And I don't know what the reasoning is. Do players not believe they can win? Are players defeated and dejected because of how aggressive or because of Michigan's game plan? I don't know. And I'm not even saying you got to go back to the Urban Meyer way of doing things in Columbus, because that was a different time period. And Urban's a different cat than Ryan Day. But you got to believe you can win, and you got to be super aggressive offensively, defensively, on the field, play calling. Be aggressive, because I think these players, when you're aggressive, that's when they play at their best.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think at this point, you just got to get players that are willing to die for this game, and not in the physical, literal sense, but you know what I mean? Yeah. You got to play this game the way we showed up against Georgia. That was one of those backs against the wall. Let's prove this narrative. Shoot, the way we played against Notre Dame this year was this past year was okay, we know how big of a game this is. We know we could get upset. We're at home and we need to win this game. And so, you could tell, Ryan Day talking noise to Lou Holtz, like after, like he took it personal, but like there doesn't seem like there's enough of taking these games personal because, I mean, to be a Buckeye, every game is personal.
Yeah.
Every game is tough. Every game is a must win, and you need to treat it that way. And I mean, one loss doesn't get you fired. You're not going 5-1 in the middle of the season and you're gone. I think that could be the case for Ryan Day, though. I think a loss to Oregon could change a lot. But we're talking about basically making it to this game next year unblemished and walking in here undefeated to be able to beat Michigan. I don't think you have an excuse next year. I don't care how good Michigan is next year. I don't think there's no room for error against Michigan. It doesn't matter how good they are. You lost the fact of getting the benefit of the doubt that Michigan's just a better team than you because they've been a better team than you the past 3 years. So, like, even if this is the best team next year that Michigan fields, like puts on the field, it doesn't matter. You've lost that leash of giving you the benefit of the doubt because even if that was the case this year, that made your third loss. Like, I think this is the best Michigan team in some years, but like that was your third loss in a row to finally, like, you lost to the other two teams that I don't think were the best Michigan teams.
Correct.
They were some of the same guys, but I mean, these are guys fruitioning into, they're now NFL players. Like these guys are one more game. Like, you know, prior to having them played in the national championship, like they're one more game away from possibly being NFL type players. So you maximize their entire career there. You get the best of them. I think this was the best Michigan team in some years. And so, but you lose in the 2 years prior and you possibly lose it to the team next year. Like you've outlast all your leash. It's gone. Your leash is gone. Now it's time to beat Michigan or go home. Sucks to suck, but you either beat Michigan or you go home, bro. That's it. Go somewhere else. I won't say home because you'll get hired somewhere else, but you go somewhere else.
Right. Mo, you made a comment there talking about players and make sure you have players that would die for the game. And I know what you mean. Not literally like lay their line or say, I would literally just give up my life for this game. Like, I understand the context of what you're saying. But I'm going to ask you a question. Do you think Ohio State currently right now has players that'll lay it all on the line in that game?
No, I don't, because they haven't done it. Like, if we did, we wouldn't lose 3 in a row. Losing to Michigan gonna happen. You're not gonna go undefeated against Michigan for the rest of your life. At some point, they was bound to get good. They got really good, borderline great. So you're never beating a team all the time like this.
Right.
Especially a team that you see every year. The rivalry means everything, and they're now on your level. But I don't think we had enough guys willing to, because if we did, we win that game last year, like this past season. If we had enough guys willing to die to get the victory, and we didn't have a quarterback leading up that week saying this is just another game, we didn't have everybody shrugging off the lack of importance for this game and the lack of importance for your head coach and for the university and for the entire Big Ten of you winning this game. No, I don't think we have enough of those guys that will die for this game. And I think we do now. Like, I think it was a wake-up call for some of these guys that are going to return. I think it was a wake-up call for any of these guys that think you're going to transfer in. Like, I think this will be the first year in the Ryan Day era where we will spend 365 days telling you, like Urban Meyer used to do his entire coaching career at Ohio State. We will spend 365 days telling you how important that final game of the season is and that everything is a journey. You need to walk into that game undefeated. Everything else is a journey, an obstacle that's in your way. But the road, the 365 days to Michigan, the countdown has now started, and you're less than 365 days. So any day you waste not thinking about beating Michigan and whatever that may take to get there and beat them, you've already wasted some days because the countdown has started since the last loss to Michigan.
Guys, I agree with Mo, and I do believe that Ohio State past few years have not had players that will lay it all on the line in the upcoming season. I think they have some guys that might do it in the upcoming game. I'll discuss who I think might do that next on Locked On Buckeyes. This episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. I know we come to sports to escape from some of the crazy realities of real life, but can we talk for just a minute about preparing for real life? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than if someone I love got sick. while a supply chain issue kept them from the life-saving medication they needed. Thankfully, we'll be okay because of Jase Medical. The Jase case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, skin infections, among others. This stuff could happen to any of us. Visit jasemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jasemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON. Once again, go to jasemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. Mo, when it comes to laying it all on the line in this game, it's something that we talk about, that we have said every time we're on a show discussing Michigan or the outcome of that game. You must give your all. You must give everything you have in that game, because that game defines you as a Buckeye player, as a Buckeye quarterback, as a Buckeye coach. I even heard Paris Campbell recently say that he said, while discussing what's going on at Ohio State, he's like, hey, I'm 5-0 against them boys. I'm good. I've heard Tyvis Powell say things like, hey, I got my gold pants. I'm good. And the former players, they're not saying it in an era of arrogance, but they have a result. They have something that's tangible, a record, gold pants, that, hey, I laid it all on the line. And while doing so in the scarlet and gray, here's what I have in my hand to show you exactly what you get when you lay it all on the line. At the end of the season, I saw something out of Jack Sawyer that I did not think I was going to see at the end of the year. It was not so much being him being vocal in the way that he was being a vocal leader, but he had 5 sacks, 7.5 TFLs in the last 3 games of the season. One of them being the game against Michigan. And I do think Jack Sawyer is one of those guys that is really stepping up in a big way and saying, look, I'm going to give everything I got for the guys on this field, not just because y'all are my teammates, but because if I do that, I know somebody else might do it as well. And if we do it collectively, we can beat Michigan in 2024.
Yeah, I agree. And the fact that he's coming back, I think, is big time.
Man, huge.
The last 3 games, he finally looked like he's starting to become the player that we expect him to be when stepping on campus at this point in time. And so to know that you're coming into that player and you'll be here for another year, I think is very promising. I think you might get your next great, Ohio State defensive end. I think it's going to take a lot more of that, though. And it seems like this junior class, especially like the Denzel Burke, Jack Sawyer, Emeka Buka, I think if Marvin Harrison Jr. wasn't considered a top 5 pick, he might come back. Like it really seems like majority of this junior class really wants to come back. Marvin Harrison's not going to come back because, bro, you're a top 5 pick. You might go top 3. So why come back? But it does seem like that third loss in that recruiting class, understanding that, like, if we don't come back and play next year and beat Michigan, we have the opportunity to be the recruiting class that didn't win a Big Ten championship or beat Michigan. And I think it seems like they all sat down, talked, and was like, bro, this isn't how we came in together. This is not how we want to leave together. And some people have different agendas. I'm not mad at Marvin Harrison for leaving. We knew this was inevitable going into the year that he was going to be gone. We knew we got one more year of Marvin Harrison, but I think for the rest of this junior class that could have some more to prove for their individual selves, and also the fact that this recruiting class really absolutely accomplished nothing now at this point, I think that's huge. And it seemed like it's led somebody who took it real personal. Seems like it's Jack Sawyer.
I think that he took it personal, but I also wonder what players on offense might do, because it's not so much the defense has played not the best game. Even this year, there were times where they had mental lapses, and the one play that kind of stood out to me in this game, after the offensive lineman from Michigan went down with the injury, and Michigan comes back after really being dejected emotionally, rallied together and scored on the very next play after that long delay, after the offensive lineman was carted off the field. That not showed something about Michigan, and also showed something about Ohio State, because in that moment you would think, hey, you would take advantage of the long layoff. You would get your win back. But no, Michigan dialed up the right play at the right time, and Blake Corum goes to the end zone touchdown. And that play right there was like, wait, it's not all on the offense. It is some on the defense. And I think Jack Sawyer is going to be a phenomenal guy to kind of lift up his play in a big way. But offensively, man, I don't know exactly who to pinpoint and say they're going to do this or do that. But if Ohio State decides Brandon Ennis and Cardinal Tate are the guys to kind of step up at the receiving room, man, look, if you can get those two guys to step up and play big ball, phenomenal ball in their second year at Ohio State, and if Will Howard is utilized in every way that Ryan Day can use him in the upcoming season, I think I'm not saying Will Howard has to throw 500 passing yards. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying direct the ship in the right way and be that kind of leader and quarterback Ohio State needs in that game. Man, look, you might get Will Howard to come in and understand the rivalry, understand what it means, be pissed off that his boys on his team currently have lost 3 years in a row and say, look, we're not doing that this year. You got to have a quarterback that believes, that shows up, but you also have to have some young guys, could be Tate and Ennis, play big in this game too.
Yeah, Will Howard, since announcing he was transferring to Ohio State, has said all the right stuff as far as for me to believe that he understands, like, look, goal number 1 is beating Michigan. Goal number 2 is winning the Big Ten. Goal number 3 is winning the national championship. Pretty much your 3 goals playing for Ohio State every year. Not having played there for the past 4 years and coming in, I think to understand that, at least saying it is the right thing. You at least got to say all the right things for us to believe you're the guy before, especially since we're 3-4 months away, 3 months, 2 months, actually 2. Like we're like 2 months away from seeing what it looks like in the spring game. Mm-hmm. And then 3 or 4 months away from hearing what it's fruition to in the summer into camp. And then, 9 months away from or 8 months away now, we're in January, 8 months away from, all right, it's live game action from here on out. We're judging you every week. And we think if you could take us to the promised land, each week is going to matter. I just think everybody just needs to understand, like, including all the coaches, like, bro, everybody's job and might be on the line. Ohio State going downhill could be on the line by losing to Michigan. Because if you lose Ryan Day and you lose Brian Hartline and lose some of these coaches because another coach comes in and brings in his own staff, like, you lose a lot of recruits. You lose a lot of potential people that are looking at you in the portal. Like, and if you don't upgrade right away, if it's not some of those recruits or whatever that I don't want to play for this guy, if it's not the right hire, the majority of your recruits and majority of people that consider playing for you in NIL, like, you have a reset for a year or two. The only thing about Ohio State is I only think they're a year type of reset team, not 2. So I think they make the right hire after Ryan Day. I think they struggle in that first year and then turn it around and everybody understands, like, Ohio State's back and everybody start coming back to Ohio State. But I do agree. This is on Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, and Jeremiah Smith. Like, as far as receivers, because y'all are the best position we have is wide receiver. And we've kind of turned into this team. We ain't got much. We got players. Don't get me wrong. Denzel Burke is damn good. JTT, Jack Sawyers. But when you think about Ohio State, they've really become nothing but the past 3 years, a bunch of flashy wide receivers. Like, that's what they're known for. Brian Hartline and the wide receivers have been the biggest talk. Our recruiting classes have been so elite.
And the receivers this year, really, outside of Harrison Jr., Mo, the receivers this year, Abuka got hurt, but even then he didn't show that he made major strides to get better. Like, he got better, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like he took the next step to be one of the, in the discussion of winning the Biletnikoff, or in the discussion to be one of the top.
The 2 best wide receivers in the country that everybody said it was all summer.
No, it was
all
not.
Summer, it was Marvin Harrison 1, Emeka Abuka 2, and then everybody else. And so you didn't see the 2. You seen the 1. You seen Marvin Harrison Jr., but his other one that was supposed to be almost just as good as him, be wide receiver 1 at almost any other school that he went to other than Ohio State. You didn't see that injury and things like that, but now you need to see it from Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis. And I think the thing is, bro, I think we're going to rely heavy on Jeremiah Smith. This is the best recruit we've ever had. This is the highest rated wide receiver recruit ever, period, in recruiting history. So I think you're going to be leaning on him. A lot of people think he's the next great wide receiver. I think Carnell Tate is too. Marvin Harrison, said before the season that Carnell Tate stepped on campus and he's better now than I was entering my sophomore year, which is crazy because we saw what he looked like at the end of his freshman year in that Utah game, and then we knew how great he would be his sophomore year. But if you're like, he's stepping on campus and is better than I was entering last year or 2 years ago now, You would call him crazy, but that's been the praise. Cardinal Tate's been the young guy that gets out there on the field when Ibuka was hurt. We had Fleming, we had Marvin Harrison, we had Cardinal Tate. So he's clearly the front runner of the young guys. Jeremiah Smith about to be on campus. So I think this is just one of those, like, and you also got to beat the narrative that you're more than just your recruiting classes holding on to flashy wide receivers, and kind of the fact of you being so good is just because you got flashy wide receivers on the outside that are tough to stop. Yeah, it is. But at some point, somebody going to run into you and be able to beat you without those receivers being a factor, which just for the past 3 years have happened to be Michigan.
Oh, man.
It just happened to be Michigan, bro.
Oh, man. Mo, I'm wondering about the offensive line. We've seen the defensive line play better. But when we come back from the break, I want to discuss with Mo if the offensive line will play with the level of nasty that they need to play with in this game in the fall. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL postseason is fun, it's here, and I'm sure you will want to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Guys, that's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, which is the best way to find popular parlays, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Once again, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. This episode is brought to you by Billiards Plus. Billiards Plus has the best selection of pool tables, game tables, shuffleboard tables, and more, and the best service in Central Ohio. And guys, check this out. Billiards Plus has more cues than anyone in Ohio. They can fix your billiards woes in their shop that is on site. They are truly the class of their field. Everything you need for in-home and backyard entertainment is at Billiards Plus. Billiards Plus carries the best pool tables from Brunswick, Ahasson, Canada, billiards, and more. And the grills, whether you like charcoal or gas or wood-fired, Billiards Plus has the perfect set for all grillers. They are family-owned and operated, and when you talk to the staff at Billiards Plus, you know you're talking to an expert who won't steer you wrong. Check out some of their new games in stock as well. Billiards Plus, visit their showroom on Dublin Center Drive in Dublin. Mo, this offensive line, and I'm not trying to go back to the Urban Meyer days as far as like the way he ran the program. I said that earlier. I'll say it again. I don't think Ryan Day's going to do that. I don't think it's in his DNA. But I do think Ryan Day knows a little bit of something about to win this game, you have to win the battle in the trenches. And there's a stat out there, I think the last 20 winners of this game, the winner of the game has been the team that has the most rushing yards. To do that, you have to win the battle in the trenches. And Ohio State clearly on the offensive line has not done that, not just this past year, over the past few years when they've lost to Michigan. Mo, I personally am not ready to sit here and say Ohio State's O-line will be playing nasty in the fall. I am not. It's not just because of what we saw in the Cotton Bowl. If you roll out with the same or similar guys that you said we had this past year, yes, I know they got the Alabama offensive linemen that transferred in, so that'd be a little bit different. But based on the guys they currently got, I don't know if that level of nasty that you need to win this game on the O-line. I don't know if that I can't expect. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I don't have the expectation that Ohio State's O-line will play nasty in that game, which worries me because you have to play nasty as the offensive line to win that game.
Takes heart, man. That's it. Like, to play tough is just heart. You got to want it. And so you can't make anybody want it. You can't force them to want it. You can't make them understand the moment. They just need to. That Missouri game needed to be a wake-up call for everybody that thinks they're going to play on that offensive line next year.
Oh, gosh.
We got that center from Alabama.
Yeah.
If we can move him to guard, then sure. I don't know if I love him at center after watching him kind of snap a game away. Not being able to get the ball to his quarterback in the snaps, I don't think I love that as much, but they also say he doesn't give up sacks. He's only allowed 1 sack in his career at Alabama, and he'd be a better guard than center. So if we can figure out a way to bring in a center that's viable and put him at guard, cool. But I just think in the trenches, man, it's kill or be killed. Like, that's what it is. And Michigan got a bunch of guys that will kill you and that are willing to kill you. And so in the trenches, it's a kill or be killed mentality. And that's why the elite pass rushers in college football and go on to be great in the NFL, because they want to kill you every time. And the elite pass rushers and the elite offensive linemen that formerly played at Ohio State, the Bosa brothers and Chase Young and all these offensive linemen, like, they wanted to kill you. Like, and they will kill you at any cost. Like, it's kill or be killed. And they took it that way. And it just doesn't seem like there's a lot of that. And it starts in the trenches. It starts with the big boys. If the big boys start beating you up, you start giving the little guys, the skill players, the wide receivers that are 6 foot, $180, 6'3", $195, like those little guys that are really the flashy of your team, but the heart and soul of your team need to start beating guys up first. And then your little guys will start playing that same aggressive way. So it starts in the trenches and it feeds out, not the other way. You can't look at your wide receivers, beat up these corners, let's play great, and bring the aggressiveness outside in. It's got to go from the inside out. And so I think that needs to be a key focus. And look, man, if you have guys who thought listen, you got a spring. You have a spring to put together the best roster that you can put. And if you got to weed guys out and they enter the portal, to me, that'll just be screaming you weren't ready.
Yeah.
And if we have 5 or 6 or 7 guys leave after spring ball, then to me, all that tells me is Ryan Day's focus was solely on next year and putting the best guys, and anybody who enters the transfer portal is not buying in. So you weren't meant to be on the roster anyway. And that's cool. No, good riddance to you. No matter where you go, like, as long as you don't go to Michigan, but I don't see anybody doing that. But I hope you have a good career after Ohio State, but I think you might see like 5, 6, 7 people, and people are going to panic when those 5, 6, or 7 players transfer up out of Ohio State. But I think that'll be a good thing, because it'll scream like, all right, now we have on this roster what we're going into next year. And basically what's on that roster next year, you've basically signed up to understand the assignment for next year. And I think that's what you need. And if you got to weed some guys out, tell them they're not going to be starting, might as well hit the portal. Hey, you might lose your job. You can't worry about these kids' feelings right now. Your job is on the line. You can't worry about kids' feelings. You got to put the best players on the field, keep whoever's ready, and after spring, whatever's on the roster going into camp, that's what you're going in with for the rest of the year, and you got to be okay with that. You can't worry about these kids' feelings when you're talking about your job on the line, because these kids' feelings ain't paying you bills.
Man, if you worry about feelings and all that stuff, you're right. You'll get kicked up out of town.
You'll lose 3 in a row to Michigan.
Man.
If you care about kids' feelings, you'll lose 3 in a row to Michigan.
Hey, it could be 4, bro. I think we're both in the same. I'm not going to ask a question. It's going to get out there. I think we both believe that if Ohio State loses this game and they're 11-1 at the end of the regular season, Ryan Day is gone. Like, there'll be a new AD in town, and I don't think the new AD will be comfortable with his first game in Columbus, losing that game when Ohio State football is everything on campus. I don't think you can survive that if I'm Ryan Day. And I think Ryan Day is a good offensive coach. I think Jeff has said Ryan Day is a great offensive mind. He could be an NFL offensive coordinator and be that for a long time. You remember Virginia Tech had that defensive coordinator that had been a D coordinator for a long time. I think it was like 20 years. Mm-hmm. Ryan Day could be an offensive coordinator for decades at any level, college, NFL, wherever it is. Maybe offensive mind and only coaching on offense is the best thing for him. But bro, if I've already told you I'm done with him. I said on the show recently, I was like, I'm off the bandwagon, bro, and I'm definitely off. If you lose this game this year, I don't see how Ryan Day keeps his job. No, you guys,
It's very simple. If you lose to Michigan the 4th year in a row, the only thing that saves your job is winning a national championship. That's it. And that could have saved That could have saved your job last year.
How does he handle
an opportunity?
The one thing that saves him, well, in that situation, if he makes it to the playoffs, your quarterback is done at the end of this upcoming year. And I'm only going to interject here with this thought. This year, do you think they would have had that conversation with Kyle McCord if they were in the playoff?
No, because beating Michigan is like, if we beat Michigan, here's the problem. Here's the best thing about losing to Michigan was understanding where we need to be better at. And you got to see a more emphasis on that with Missouri. Because all year you watched Kyle McCord and you're like, bro, even if we could beat Michigan, this just ain't it. For all the talent, to have a top 5 defense, to have all the talent on offense, we might beat Michigan, but I don't see us winning the national championship if you were being realistic. And even if we could have, I think the window was open because the talent there, like teams weren't as good. But the problem was, now that Kyle McCord lost, if he beat Michigan, he wins the Big Ten and he's undefeated. Now you give him the NIL money, and you're still lacking at the fact of an elite quarterback. You're still lacking at what you need. You just were able to get over all the humps, so you're not going to get rid of a quarterback. And we probably still have Kyle McCord on the roster, but guess what? Now we're having the same conversation. Yeah. We're not having the hypothetical of what Will Howard can do for this offense that Kyle McCord couldn't. We're having the same conversation, and we're just like, we hope Kyle McCord is better, gets better in the offseason. He was good enough to win a lot of these games, not good enough to win the national championship. But if you can beat Michigan and you can win the Big Ten, then you need to be good enough to win the national championship, but you got to go. So the best thing was losing so that we could get all these answers. We got every answer we needed by losing to Michigan because everything was emphasized in the Missouri game.
You know, Mo, I don't really know if Ryan Day would have gone out if you lose that game, still find a way to get to the playoff. I don't know if we would have gotten these changes as quickly as we did and have on Ohio State's team. If Ohio State wins that game against Michigan, 12-0, goes to the playoff, makes some noise, I don't think Ryan Day would have made bringing in an Alabama offensive lineman. I don't know if that would have happened. Quinshon Judkins, I don't know if you would look at him. I don't know if you would look at some of the other things if you win that game. I don't know. So saying the best thing that came out of that game by losing was to kind of get a reality check and realize, hey, we got to make some changes instantly. I hate losing that game, but that may have been the only way. And we all know, in tragedy or even in defeat, we learn lessons and we make changes so it doesn't happen again, or hopefully it doesn't happen again. That's what Ryan Day is currently doing. It could be too little too late because the stuff we're seeing now, the changes we're seeing, some of this stuff could have been done before the season. But sometimes you don't think it's as bad as it is until you lose that game for the 3rd year in a row.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it was. You thought Kyle McCord or Devin Brown was good enough. And they were always Kyle McCord was good enough until Michigan. He was good enough to beat Notre Dame. He was good enough to beat Penn State on the road. He was good enough until it came time to play in Michigan. Then at that point, it's not good enough. And if you're not good enough to beat Michigan, you're not good enough to win a national championship. You're not good enough to win the conference. So therefore, it's not good enough. But sometimes good enough isn't good enough. And if Kyle McCord leads that march and wins that game, you still realize you get all the things you get, but you still are sitting here and you'll be like, maybe Kyle McCord has a dud in the game against Alabama. Because I think if we beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, we're now Michigan at number 1 and we play Alabama. Maybe he has a dud, but you're like, dang, he did win the Big Ten. He did beat Michigan. He got that monkey off our back. It is a tougher conversation. It is tougher to not give him the NIL money he wants. It is tougher not to give him, guarantee him the starting job. But now that everything like that happened, you're like, yeah, no, we're not giving you more NIL money and we can't guarantee you the starting job. And if so, that means you leave, so be it. So it was the best thing for us because if we kept Kyle McCord, we still have a quarterback problem. It was a quarterback problem all year. You weren't satisfied after beating Notre Dame with the quarterback. You weren't satisfied after beating Penn State. And he had some bright moments. I'm not going to act like Kyle McCord was completely trash. He just wasn't good enough for Ohio State standard, especially with what we've been spoiled at quarterback. He's good enough for Miami. He's good enough for Syracuse. He's good enough for Louisville. Kyle McCord would probably be the best quarterback they've ever had, but he's not good enough for Ohio State in the standard. And then you add on the list, and the guy that was good enough for Ohio State standard, he lost 2 in a row with CJ Stroud. So, your kind of back's against the wall because, you feel like this Texans season was the worst thing for Buckeyes fans ever. The way the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud played, somehow Sundays correlated to Saturdays every time watching Stroud play. And we could have had this guy. This guy could have stayed. We wasted this guy. This guy doing this in the NFL didn't win the big one on Saturdays. We didn't win a national championship with this uberly talented guy that might win NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year, might be one of the next top 5 elite quarterbacks for the next 10 to 15 years. So especially while Kyle McCord is evaluating that, you got the guy that you just replaced is balling on Sundays. And you're comparing that. You play the day before him. He turns around and plays absolutely amazing on a Houston, Texas team that he took to win the conference. So you're also battling that. You're battling how good your former quarterback is in the NFL. And that's one thing no quarterback that has replaced another Ohio State quarterback has dealt with, because guess what? They all been trash on Sundays.
Yeah.
You ain't never have to deal with that. Stroud didn't have to deal with 2 years how good Fields was in the NFL. And so we're taking a drop down from that. Kyle McCord, the only one that had to deal with it. He had to deal with the fact that he does not play elite enough on Saturdays. And then we turn around, the guy that we just had for the past 2 years that should have beat Georgia is sitting here playing like he might be one of the elite for the next 10 to 15 years. So that's tough to battle that too when you're Kyle McCord. I don't care though. Glad he's gone. I don't care that it's stuck. Sucks to suck, but just for perspective for people to a food for thought thing. But I don't care. It doesn't change how I look at Kyle McCord.
No, not at all. Mo, love having you on the show. I love having Mo's insight, and it's not going anywhere. He'll be back on the show in the future discussing Ohio State football, maybe Will Howard, maybe the running backs. Not sure, but we'll definitely have Mo back on to talk about these Buckeyes. You can follow Mo on X at Mo_Cheese15. You can follow me on the same platform at JStevens07. We are out of here on a Tuesday, Buckeye fans. I will see you next time.